Okay, so here I am at the Throckmorton Theater. I'm going to do my traditional video tour as quickly as possible for the people who didn't get to see the show. And I'll start with the introductory painting. Today is, April 21st? Pete Nestler's birthday. Ba-boom! This is Shadow Dancer, and most of you saw it on the card. Not very good lighting here, but I'll just move along. This is SS Minnow, and I really was attracted to, I'll be brief about all this stuff, but I was really attracted to the light bouncing off the ground, the shadow fitting the whole thing in a square. But then I started getting really attached to just this kind of little abstract stuff sitting down in the bottom in there. You start to see that for what it is. Little pieces of paint connected with just the right edges. So then we come from the Minnow into, this is off back of Stinson Beach, Seadrift. And this is a limited palette painting. I was really interested in violets. It's a red-green palette. And capturing the violets and the wet sand has just been an ongoing challenge for me for a long time to capture the right values for the sand. It's always different depending on how granular the sand is, how much it holds water. A little geology there. I'm interested in all that stuff. A little more geology. I'm going to pull back on this. This is for people who live in Marin. This is a very familiar site of being hiking up on the mountain, these big beautiful fire trails that just wrap up and down the ridges. And this one, appropriately, since it's Pete Nestler's birthday, April 21st, is called Roller Coaster, and we used to ride up and down the mountain. Well, back in the day we'd ride down the mountain. Nobody rode up, but now everyone rides up. And I would go left, or I would go right, and Pete would go left, and he would ride this section down to his house. So Pete, I hope you see this. Peace and smile. So here, again, funky lighting. This is a bigger piece for the show, 24 by 36. This is meta. And what I was attracted to here was really this water sitting on the leaf. And it really, this light doesn't capture it. It looks better in person, but anyway, the light coming from within. I've painted this many, many times. And always a challenge to capture the reflection of pink in the water. And again, if you zoom in, it gets really tasty. I think I'll use that word a lot today, tasty. Tasty, baby. Okay, here's another little limited palette, quick little 8x10 that I did in Kona. One of my favorite places on the planet. Just that beautiful basalt, and then the algae, not the algae, but the coral, which grows on the basalt and creates that beautiful, very unique kind of cinnamon, cinnabar, red violet, red. And there's a warm black. Very challenging to paint the right color of basalt. And also have, artistic marks. Come on, focus. Okay, moving along. Again, here's another one of those challenging ones. Wet sand. Wet sand capturing the reflection of the sky. And also, I don't paint from photos, so what I'm really doing is unscrewing my brain and trying to figure out, how do I want to compose this? And often it happens in a little teeny 1x2 or 2x2 sketch, so that I know, okay, what's my concept here? And it's basically wet sand feeding back into the ocean. But then you catch these little nuances, which I love, which is that right there, because that wave, that water has a thickness. And see how I nailed it with that little line, not too much, all the way across the picture. A lot of people they discover something and then they're just like, oh my God, and they do it everywhere. I just wanted to fold it in and out along the wet sand. A top, a front, and a side, and a reflected light in that wet sand. Boom! I won't say boom again. This is right outside on my driveway. It's called Naked Lady, our native amaryllis. And here I really wanted to capture all the phases of the growth. The bloom, of course, the beautiful spires that just poke out of the ground, and then the dead leaves from this very green leaf that dries up and then feeds the giant 6 by 6 inch bulb that sits inside the ground. A lot going on in here today. This is called fall something, ocean fall, and it was pretty brief. You know, the color was really what I was after, and it's sort of that fresh ice plant pushing up against the sky. It was a very beautiful day. But then as you know, after you paint that, you start to have to contrast that flat graphic with something airy and fresh. So I created that wedge of ocean and then the distant fog moving in. Very, very subtle stuff, people. But that's really what it's all about for me. Okay, here's where you just do something to do it. And this was this dried up, beautiful tree out in Point Reyes. This is called Point Reyes. And I just started just lathering on the paint to see how much surface I could create just to do it. And sometimes those ones just do it are just the breakthroughs. You know, just mark making, color shifts, tools, little nuances, and come on, focus. Little pieces of paint to create an interesting design motif. And you'll see some other pieces that I put in this show that reflect that same kind of feel. Little light creeping around the back, a nice violet. You know, is it there? I'm sure I pushed it. I tend to do that. This was painted up on the ridge. This is a bigger painting painted from a teeny painting. And the light's beaming right on it, but that's called Proust. The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but seeing with new eyes. And I really wanted to convey the idea of change. I'm sorry about that light up there, but there's a moon. There it is. It's the last light, and then the moon was right in there too. Anyway, this is a very peaceful painting, reflecting transition. And the composition, it's a studio painting, right? So what I really wanted to do was those three pieces of light on the horizon carrying you straight up as a triangle, an equilateral triangle to the moon at the top. And here's another one of the thicker ones, painted at Tennessee Valley Beach. These are pussy willows. It's called Tennessee Valley. But you can see this surface just gets really fun. And as I was painting this mother and daughter walked by, and they stopped, and a lot of people stand behind me and look, and a lot of times it's complimentary, and sometimes they say things like, this young woman said, "Why would anybody want to paint that?" And I said, I don't know. Sometimes genius just comes to you and you say exactly the wrong thing. When I really wanted to say, "Hey baby, you want to try?"
So everything worked out for the best.
So this one I was really intrigued with. It's called Gull Fest, yeah. And this is out at Stinson Beach. And I was really intrigued with the way the birds up against the dark hill were light, but up against the fog were dark. And it's hard to see it in this. It's hard to see it in this light, but that little passage is successful to me. This one I painted in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and again, just pushing to the abstract, seeing what I could do with an abstract design. And it's Deadfall, but I'm not going to paint every little bit of everything. I just wanted to portray the grayness and violet quality up against these beautiful green aspens. That was just beautiful to me. And again, you get close to this stuff, and it's just like, man, I give thanks to all the great abstract expressionists before me that just led the way for me to just take license. This piece was done in Pismo Beach, and I just pulled off on the side of the road. And I love that rock and the light on the rock, and so I just painted it. I love it. If anybody's in Pismo, you can see these incredible sandstone rock pieces. And again, I love zooming in because brushwork is really my passion. Color and brushwork, and of course the abstract. Look how that edge is just gone right there. I didn't want to make it just this solid thing. Anyway, violets from the sky, that's always a challenge, to paint the watercolor and the sky color coming into it. And you'll see some of my newer pieces, I just came back from Point Lobos, you'll see a lot of that type of stuff. There's a distant swell coming in. From here it looks like a distant swell, but then you get up close and it's just a paint stroke. Fool the eye. And moving across the room. This one was the first painting I ever did of a tarp, and since then I've been very intrigued with tarps. I think it's because I love that color. Very Burning Man. Back in the day, everything, as far as you could see, was desert and blue tarps. But this reminds me of, it's like some sort of sarcophagus in some way, and I just really like some of the just simple abbreviated stuff. You know, people paint this shit all the time, but I don't see it very good a lot of times. You're varying your brush, varying your tools. You don't do that, it's just gonna be another boat sitting on a wall, kind of like this. So this one was part of an invitational I did for the Baywood artists. I'll give them a plug. This was to save Mount Diablo, which I guess we did save because it's still there. But I was one of the few people that actually got outside and painted the area instead of just shooting pictures, whatever. So I was really interested in these beautiful shadows on the hill. And then this gorgeous yellow flower, or yellow thistle, that was blooming on the ridge up against the blue sky. This is one of my favorites, and my sweet wife's. Look at the light coming through that shadow. Very abstract. Here, I'll pull back so you can see it from here. Focus. Focus, pocus. There it is. So we're going to swing around the corner here. And, oh, another red dot. This was done in Victor, Idaho. Hard to give this one away. Red-violet palette. Yellow-green, blue-violet palette. And there's a shadow going across, but it really shows up the violet in this lens. And I was really intrigued with creating the pattern and surface, letting those trees just sort of be what they're going to be, and coming out of that tall grass and those dancing small little leaves flickering in the wind. More trees. This is called Stern. I did this one morning in Stern Grove after dropping off the lovely Rita at school. I like this one. It's very smooth. Crap light on this. Very, very smooth surface, but it looks textural. So sometimes I like to lay it on, sometimes I like to stroke it on. This is called Yellow Tree, big catalpa tree on Redwood Road in Corte Madera. I painted this like 3 times before I really nailed it. And this is a yellow strip, yellow violet. And I'll show you my favorite spot right, wait for it, there. I love that hose. Anyway, so here we are. This one's Lovers. Painted out in Devil's Gulch. A very sweet time in my life. I think that all that moss has peeled off and fallen away. But if anybody's never been to Devil's Gulch, go out there and see the giant sequoia redwood there. All right, no light on this, but I think you can get a feel for it. This is called Miwok. And I wanted to create a spiral starting at the middle or the bottom, slightly left, rolling up the left side, along the top frame, down the light, and back into the middle. Just everything revolving around the money shot. And here's where it sweeps down. And then up, spiraling around to... Here's a pretty juicy one. This is also Bolinas Lagoon. Trying to paint that wet sand again, or wet mud. Just get the right sky color, the right reflection so that it looks like mud. This was a very quick, early morning aspen shot in Victor, Idaho. And I call this paint by number because it was just like a paint by number.